Love does not consist of gazing at each other, but in looking outward together in the same direction. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Some topics stir up discomfort for a reason. Not because they're wrong, but because they force you to rethink what you were handed as the rules. A lot of men grew up believing attraction is something you earn through effort. Be agreeable, chase consistently, never rock the boat, keep your wants quiet, and eventually you'll be rewarded with loyalty and desire. But human psychology doesn't work like a vending machine. This isn't about villainizing women. And it's not about tricks that turn people into targets. It's about recognizing the emotional mechanics underneath connection, how confidence, boundaries, self-respect, and presence shape how you're perceived. Many men, especially those raised on the idea that being endlessly nice is the safest path, were never taught that attraction often responds more to who you are than what you do. When you finally understand that, you stop negotiating for affection. You communicate differently. You choose differently. And you carry yourself like a man who doesn't need approval to feel valuable. That's why people dodge this conversation. Because once you see the pattern, it's hard to unsee. And that's exactly why it matters. 1. Attraction is emotional first, logical second. Attraction is emotional first, logical second. And this is where most men quietly miss the mark without ever realizing it, because people don't fall in love with resumes. They fall in love with how you make them feel in a moment, in a conversation, in the space between words. You can be reliable. You can be kind. You can have your life together. That is good. But it is not enough on its own. Without emotional impact, attraction slowly cools, not because anything is wrong with you, but because the human brain does not bond through facts. It bonds through sensation, surprise, and emotion. Psychology tricks have shown this again and again. The heart reacts before the mind can catch up. Female psychology works this way too, not out of mystery or manipulation, but because emotion is the gateway to connection. Be honest about this. Don't hide behind logic. Don't assume that explaining your value will create desire. It won't. Emotional stimulation does the heavy lifting. Humor, calm confidence, a sense that you are present, grounded, and slightly unpredictable in a good way. That is what creates curiosity. That is what keeps attention alive. A man who can guide a conversation without rushing it, who can pause comfortably, who can smile and let silence work for him, often creates a deeper impression than a man who lists achievements like bullet points. The laughter lingers. The feeling stays. The facts fade. You must understand this clearly if you want to know how to fall in love in a way that lasts. Logic explains. Emotion imprints. When someone feels seen, relaxed, intrigued, or energized around you, their mind begins to associate you with that emotional state. That is not manipulation. That is human nature. Psychology tricks are only dangerous when misunderstood. Used wisely, they simply help you communicate in a language the brain already speaks. Be the man who creates a mood, not a presentation. Don't chase approval. Don't over-justify. Speak with intention. Listen fully. Respond instead of reacting. Female psychology responds strongly to how safe and alive a moment feels, not to how impressive a story sounds on paper. That is why unpredictability matters, not chaos, but light contrast. A playful remark after a serious thought. A calm response where tension was expected. A confident pause where others rush to fill space. That contrast wakes up emotion. And emotion is the doorway to bonding. You don't need to perform. You need to be present. That is the secret most people overlook. When you are emotionally anchored in yourself, others feel it. When you enjoy the moment without trying to extract something from it, others lean in. This is how to fall in love without forcing it, without pressure, without pretending to be someone else. Psychology tricks, when used with integrity, simply sharpen your awareness of timing, tone, and emotional rhythm. They teach you that attraction is less about saying the right thing and more about creating the right feeling. Be aware. Be intentional. Be steady. Don't underestimate the power of a genuine smile, a well-timed joke, or a calm lead in conversation. These are not small things. They are signals. Female psychology picks up on them instantly, often before words are consciously processed. That is why emotional presence beats logical persuasion every time. If you want connection, don't lead with credentials. Lead with energy. Lead with warmth. Lead with curiosity. That is how to fall in love in the real world, not through explanation, but through experience. Remember this. Emotion opens the door. Logic walks through it later. 2. Approval seeking lowers perceived value. Approval seeking lowers perceived value, and this is one of those quiet truths that most men were never taught, yet it shapes attraction more than looks, money, or clever lines ever could. When you constantly look outward for validation, you unintentionally send a message you never meant to send. Not through words, but through energy. That message is simple. I'm not fully comfortable standing on my own. Don't misunderstand this. Wanting connection is human. Wanting approval to feel steady is something else. That is the difference. Psychology shows that people don't feel drawn to those who ask for permission to exist. They feel drawn to those who are already at ease with who they are. A high-value man does not announce his worth, and he certainly does not negotiate it moment by moment. He lives from self-approval first. Everything else follows. Think about how this shows up in everyday behavior. Constant checking, over-explaining, asking, "Is this okay?" before every decision, every opinion, every move. It sounds polite, even considerate, but over time it drains attraction because it shifts the emotional balance. Don't ask for reassurance when none is needed. Be clear, be calm, be grounded. That is not about control or ego. That is about stability. A man who says, "This works for me," sends a very different signal than a man who asks, "Is this okay?" every step of the way. One communicates self-trust. The other communicates uncertainty. People feel this instantly, even if they can't explain it. This is why men who learn to attract women later in life often realize it was never about trying harder. It was about trying less and standing firmer. Here's the metaphor most men understand once they hear it. Imagine a house built on rented land. It looks fine at first, but every change requires permission. Every improvement depends on someone else's approval. Now imagine a house built on land you own. You still welcome guests. You still care how it feels inside. But the foundation is yours. Self-approval works the same way. When your sense of worth is rented from other people's reactions, attraction feels fragile. When it's owned, attraction feels natural. Masculine energy, at its healthiest, comes from this internal ownership. Not loudness, not force. Quiet certainty. Don't chase agreement. Don't soften your truth to be liked. Be respectful, but be rooted. That is what people lean toward. This matters deeply if your goal is to attract women in a way that feels authentic and lasting. Healthy attraction grows where emotional steadiness lives. When a man needs constant validation, conversations feel heavier. Choices feel tentative. Even compliments lose their power because they sound like requests in disguise. You must understand this clearly. Confidence is not bravado, and self-approval is not arrogance. It is simply the ability to say, "I know who I am, and I'm okay standing there." A high-value man doesn't seek applause for every step. He invites others into a life that already feels complete. That invitation is far more compelling than any performance. Over time, approval-seeking also creates exhaustion, both for you and for the people around you. Always checking the temperature. Always adjusting. Always wondering if you're doing it right. Don't live that way. Be decisive in small moments. Choose the restaurant without apologizing. State your preference without defending it. Hold your opinion without forcing it on anyone. These small acts quietly build masculine energy in its most attractive form: calm, steady, self-contained. This is how you attract women without pressure or persuasion. Not by proving value, but by embodying it. The paradox is simple. The less you ask to be chosen, the more naturally you are. So remember this the next time you feel the urge to seek reassurance. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself if you truly need permission or if you're just avoiding the discomfort of standing firm. Don't outsource your confidence. Be the man who approves of himself first. That is not selfish. That is essential. Because when self-approval becomes your baseline, everything changes. Your words slow down. Your posture settles. Your presence becomes easier to trust. And trust, more than approval, is what creates attraction that lasts. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to engage. Like this video, share it with a man who's ready to stand more firmly in himself, and subscribe for more clear, grounded insights. Most importantly, anchor this lesson by commenting the affirmation below. Writing it makes it real. Repeating it makes it stick. Comment to remember. I approve of myself first. This works for me. Drop it in the comments now and let it remind you that real attraction begins with self-approval, not permission. 3. Mystery is not manipulation. It's natural psychology. Here is the truth most men are never taught, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Mystery is not manipulation. It is how the human mind naturally stays engaged. And this matters deeply in modern life where oversharing has become the default setting and attention has become fragile. The brain is wired to pursue discovery, to lean forward when something unfolds at the right pace, and when you explain everything. Reveal everything and emotionally unload everything all at once, you don't. Create closeness, you collapse curiosity, because attraction, respect, and connection grow through movement, not through data dumps, and this is not theory. It is psychology backed by centuries of observation, which is why Aristotle said, "The more you know." The more you realize you don't know, a reminder that depth is revealed over time, not announced up front. Think about it like this. A man who shares his life in chapters allows the other person's mind to participate, to imagine, to wonder, to ask, while a man who unloads his entire past in one sitting overwhelms the moment and removes the invitation to explore. And here is the critical distinction you must understand clearly. Mystery is not hiding, it is pacing. It is knowing that timing creates value, just as silence creates weight in music and pauses create power in speech. In today's world of instant messaging, social media confessions, and performative vulnerability, restraint has become rare, and rarity creates interest, not because anyone is trying to control anyone, but because the mind needs space to breathe. And as Marcus Aurelius wrote in Old Stoic wisdom, learn to be indifferent to what makes no difference. Meaning you do not need to explain yourself constantly to be understood. You need to live in a way that speaks for you. This is where Stoicism Win becomes practical, not philosophical, because an iron mind understands that connection is built through presence, consistency, and calm. Disclosure, not through emotional flooding, and when you pace your story, when you let moments reveal you rather than speeches define you, you communicate strength without posturing, confidence without noise, and clarity without force. Modern men often believe that saying more proves sincerity, but experience teaches the opposite because people trust what they can discover themselves far more than what is handed to them all at once. And this is why Hemingway famously said, "The dignity of movement of an iceberg is due to only 1/8 of it being above water," a line that perfectly captures the psychology at work here. You do not need to announce your depth. You let it surface naturally, and this approach improves every area of life. From relationships to leadership to personal discipline, because it trains you to act first and explain less, to listen more and react slower, to stay grounded when emotions run high, and this is the iron mind in action, steady, composed, deliberate. Here is your instruction. Stop oversharing in the hope of being understood. Stop explaining yourself to earn approval. Stop treating every interaction like a confessional. Instead, speak with intention, share with timing, reveal through behavior. And allow curiosity to do its work, because curiosity is not something you force, it is something you protect. When you do this, you create forward motion, you create engagement, you create respect, and you create a sense of earned connection rather than rushed intimacy. And this is not about games. It is about alignment with human nature, which has not changed even though technology has. And as Seneca said in Old Stoic wisdom, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." Meaning that when you give everything away at once, you leave nothing to discover later. Mastery comes from patience. Victory comes from discipline, and Stoicism Win belongs to the man who understands that less said at the right time outweighs more said at the Wrong time, every single time. Adopt this mindset, and you will notice a shift not only in how others respond to you, but in how you carry yourself, because an iron mind does not rush to be known. It allows itself to be experienced. And that difference is everything. 4. Confidence is felt, not announced. Confidence is felt, not announced, and that single idea quietly explains why so many men say all the right things and still don't get the response they expect, because real confidence never clears its throat to ask for attention. It simply enters the room and changes the temperature, and that is something people sense long before they decide what they think. So don't say, I'm confident. Be confident. That is the rule, and it shows up in small, almost boring ways that are anything but boring in. Effect: the way you stand without stiffness, the way your voice stays steady without trying to impress, the way you pause before answering instead of rushing to fill silence, the way you decide and move forward without asking for permission. Because psychologically, people trust what they feel in your presence, not what you explain to them with words. And this is one of those psychology tricks that works precisely because it doesn't look like a trick at all. You must understand that. Confidence lives in your nervous system, not your vocabulary, and female psychology responds to signals, not speeches, which is why posture matters more than promises and calm boundaries matter more than big claims. So don't over-justify, don't overshare. Don't try to win approval by smoothing every edge. Be clear, be grounded, be willing to disagree without heat, because a man who can calmly say, I see it differently, without raising his voice or shrinking back creates a sense of safety and respect that no amount of people pleasing ever will, and that calm disagreement is not about being right. It's about being centered. It's about showing that your sense of self doesn't wobble when tension appears, and that is deeply attractive in a quiet, adult way. Many men think confidence means talking more, proving more, or projecting certainty at all times. But real confidence often sounds like less, not more, a shorter sentence, a slower pace, a thoughtful pause, and you must. Remember that the body speaks first, long before the mind catches up. So straighten without stiffness, relax your shoulders, breathe lower in your chest, let your eyes rest instead of darting around, because these cues land directly in the emotional brain, where decisions about trust and attraction are actually made. And this is where psychology tricks and female psychology quietly meet reality. Be decisive in small moments. Choose the restaurant without turning it into a debate. Set a boundary. Without apology, say no without explanation. That is not about control. That is about clarity, and clarity feels like strength without ever needing to announce itself. And when you do speak, let your tone do the work, calm, measured, unhurried. Because urgency sounds like need and calm sounds like choice, and choice is compelling. If you want to understand how to fall in love and how attraction truly builds over time, stop looking for lines and start refining your presence, because attraction grows when a woman feels steady around you, when she feels she doesn't have to manage your emotions or guess where you stand. And this is a subtle but powerful point in female psychology that many men miss. So don't chase agreement. Don't avoid tension just to be liked. Be respectful and firm at the same time, because respect without firmness fades and firmness without respect feels cold. But together they create a grounded energy that invites connection. Imagine two men in the same disagreement. One fidgets, laughs nervously, and backs down even though he disagrees. The other listens, nods, and calmly states his view without needing to win. The second man doesn't raise his voice or make a show of anything. Yet he naturally commands more respect, not because he demanded it, but because his behavior made it obvious. He respects himself, and that self-respect is felt instantly. This is one of those psychology tricks that works across age, culture, and context, because it speaks to something ancient and human. We trust calm certainty. We relax around it. And when people relax, connection deepens, which is essential if you're serious about how to fall in love in a real, lasting way. Be aware that confidence is also shown in what you don't do. You don't overreact. You don't chase reassurance. You don't explain yourself into exhaustion. You don't collapse your boundaries to keep the peace. Because peace that costs your self-respect is never peaceful, and people feel that even if they can't name it. Instead, You stay present, you stay kind, you stay firm, and you let others respond to you rather than trying to manage their reactions. And this shift alone changes how you are perceived more than any external change ever could. Remember, real confidence is quiet but heavy. It doesn't rush, it doesn't beg, it doesn't perform. It simply is. And once you embody that, psychology tricks become unnecessary because your presence does the work for you. Female psychology responds naturally, and how to fall in love stops being a mystery and starts becoming a byproduct of who you are when you walk into the room. If this opened your eyes, don't scroll past it. Be decisive. Like this video, subscribe for more psychology tricks that actually work, and share it with a man who's still trying to prove himself instead of standing grounded. That is how growth spreads. You must interact to lock the lesson in your mind. Now comment the sentence below and mean it. Real confidence is felt in my calm, not announced by my words. 5. Boundaries create respect, not distance. Boundaries create respect, not distance, and this truth quietly contradicts one of the biggest fears many men carry into their relationships and interactions: the fear that saying no will cost them connection, approval, or affection. So let's be clear from the start. Don't confuse availability with value. Be selective, be intentional. That is where respect begins. Many men grow up believing that being easygoing, always agreeable, and endlessly flexible makes them more likable. But in practice, it often does the opposite, because when you place no limits on your time or energy, people unconsciously treat it as limitless, and what is limitless is rarely cherished. You must understand this simple psychological shift. Boundaries are not walls, they are signals, and what they signal is self-worth. When you calmly state what works for you and what does not, you communicate that your life has structure, your values matter, and your time is meaningful, and that alone changes how you are perceived. Don't apologize for having standards. Be calm about them. That is the difference. A boundary delivered with tension feels defensive, but a boundary delivered with ease feels grounded, and grounded men are trusted. This is where the idea of the high-value man quietly comes into focus, not as a title to claim, but as a way of moving through the world. A high-value man does not explain himself endlessly. He does not negotiate his principles in moments of pressure, and he does not rush to fill silence with justification. He simply states his position and allows others to respond. That calm confidence doesn't create distance, it creates clarity, and clarity is deeply attractive because it removes confusion and emotional guessing from the interaction. Many men worry that boundaries will make them seem rigid or unapproachable, but the opposite is usually true. When you say, "That doesn't work for me," without anger, without sarcasm, without a lecture, people lean in. They sense strength without threat. They sense self-respect without arrogance. And that balance matters if you want to attract women in a way that feels natural and sustainable. Attraction does not grow in chaos. It grows in environments where expectations are clear and emotional energy feels steady. Boundaries provide that structure. They tell the other person, you're dealing with someone who knows himself, and that knowledge is magnetic. Be aware that boundaries also protect your masculine energy, not in a loud or performative way, but in a quiet, stabilizing way. Masculine energy, at its core, is about direction, presence, and containment. When you let everything slide, when you say yes out of fear rather than choice, your energy scatters. You feel drained. Others feel it too, even if they can't articulate why. But when you choose your yes carefully and deliver your no without guilt, your energy consolidates. You feel centered. That centered presence is something people respond to instinctively, and it's a key reason boundaries often increase attraction rather than reduce it. Don't wait until you're frustrated to set a boundary. Be proactive. That is maturity. Boundaries are most powerful when they are expressed early and calmly, not after resentment has built up. If plans change last minute and it doesn't work for you, say so. If a conversation crosses a line, redirect it. If your time is being taken for granted, address it without drama. These moments may feel small, but they compound. Over time, people learn how to treat you based on what you consistently allow. This is not about control. It is about authorship. You are the author of your time, your attention, and your emotional bandwidth. A man who respects his own limits sends a powerful message without saying a word, and that message aligns closely with what many associate with a high value man, someone who does not chase validation, but allows respect to form organically. This is especially important if your goal is to attract women who value emotional stability and mutual respect rather than constant reassurance. Boundaries filter your life. They keep what aligns and gently push away what does not. That is not loss. That is refinement. You must also remember that boundaries invite reciprocity. When you respect your own time, others are more likely to respect it too. When you honor your needs, you model how others should honor theirs. This creates healthier dynamics, not colder ones. In fact, many women feel more relaxed around a man with clear boundaries because they don't feel responsible for managing his emotions or guessing his expectations. That sense of emotional safety is deeply tied to attraction and is often overlooked by men who think doing more is the answer, when in reality, doing less with intention is far more effective. Don't mistake firmness for harshness. Be warm. Be human. Boundaries don't require a stiff tone or an intimidating posture. They require honesty and consistency. You can smile and still say no. You can be kind and still stand your ground. That combination reflects mature masculine energy, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. And when that energy is present, efforts to attract women stop feeling forced and start feeling aligned, because you are no longer bending yourself into shapes just to be chosen. In the end, boundaries are not about keeping people out, they're about letting the right people in. They ensure that the connections you build are based on mutual respect rather than silent compromise. That is the quiet power behind boundaries, and why men who embrace them often notice a shift not only in how others treat them, but in how they see themselves. Be clear, be calm, be consistent. That is how respect grows, attraction deepens, and the path of the high value man becomes less about chasing outcomes and more about standing firmly in who you are. 6. Emotional control is more attractive than emotional suppression. Emotional control is not emotional suppression, and the men who understand this hold an edge most never reach, because there is a quiet power in being able to feel deeply while staying steady, a power that creates trust, calm, and attraction in modern life where stress, noise, and constant pressure test you every day. This is old Stoic wisdom in action, not the outdated idea of shutting feelings down, but the refined skill of mastering them, because as Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events, and that sentence alone explains why emotional control matters more than emotional silence, why the man who can acknowledge frustration, disappointment, or uncertainty and speak about it calmly stands taller than the man who explodes or disappears, because control signals safety, maturity, and leadership without saying a word. Psychology shows that people respond to those who regulate themselves, not those who numb themselves, and in relationships, at work and in life. That regulation becomes magnetic because calm is rare, calm is valuable, calm wins, and Stoicism win moments are built on this exact principle, the ability to pause, to choose, to respond instead of react. Viktor Frankl captured this perfectly when he said, between stimulus and response there is a space, and that space is where an iron mind is forged, where you decide you are going to be under pressure, not by pretending you feel nothing, but by refusing to let emotion drive the wheel. In modern life, where messages arrive instantly, conflicts escalate fast, and attention is constantly pulled apart, emotional control is a competitive advantage because the man who can listen without flaring up, speak without attacking, and hold his frame without shutting down becomes the one others respect, rely on, and want around. This is not softness. It is precision. It is discipline. It is old Stoic wisdom refined for today's world, because suppressing emotion only stores pressure until it leaks out sideways, while controlled emotion becomes clarity, and clarity creates confidence. Aristotle said, anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everyone's power. And that is the difference you must master. Because emotional control means you still feel anger, frustration, desire, and disappointment, but you. Express them with intention, with timing, with restraint. And that is what builds trust with women, respect with men, and authority in any room you enter. The advice is simple but demanding. Stop reacting, start responding, practice the pause. Name what you feel without dramatizing it. Speak directly without heat, and walk away when necessary without making a scene, because every time you do this, you strengthen your iron mind, and each repetition makes you steadier under pressure. This is how Stoicism win strategies show up in real life, not in quotes alone, but in behavior, in conversations, in moments of tension where others lose themselves and you do not. Emotional control is attractive because it signals that you can handle life, that you can handle conflict, that you can handle responsibility, and in a world full of noise, the man who stays grounded becomes unforgettable because control is confidence, control is freedom, control is victory, and when you live this way, consistently, guided by Old Stoic wisdom, reinforcing your iron mind daily, you don't chase approval, you command respect, you don't force outcomes, you allow them to come to you, and that is how you master life without ever raising your voice. 7. Chasing creates imbalance. Chasing creates imbalance, and imbalance quietly erodes attraction even when intentions are good, because pursuit without reciprocity flips the emotional scale upside down and turns curiosity into pressure. So don't confuse effort with value. And don't assume that more attention equals more interest, because when one person overinvests too early, the other often, unconsciously, starts to devalue the connection, not out of cruelty, but out of human wiring. That is how the mind protects its sense of choice and freedom, and this is where understanding psychology tricks and female psychology becomes essential if you want real connection instead of polite distance. Be clear about this truth. Attraction grows best in space, not in pursuit. And when messages stack up, plans are pushed, and availability feels unlimited, the mystery thins out and emotional balance slips away, so you must allow interest to rise naturally rather than trying to manufacture it, because the fastest way to cool something down is to smother it with urgency. Don't chase replies, don't over-explain your intentions, don't rush emotional closeness before it has earned its footing, be steady instead, be present without hovering. Because spacing communication gives the other person room to lean in by choice, and choice is the birthplace of desire. This is not about manipulation, it is about alignment. Understanding how to fall in love starts with respecting the rhythm of attraction, which often moves slower than excitement, but deeper than impulse. And when both people invest at a similar pace, the connection feels lighter, safer, and more intriguing. You must remember that interest revealed gradually feels valuable, while interest poured out all at once feels predictable, and predictability rarely sparks curiosity, especially in early stages where perception matters more than promises. That is why smart psychology tricks focus on balance rather than control. And why female psychology responds best to calm confidence instead of constant reassurance, because emotional steadiness signals self-respect and stability without saying a word. Be patient. Let silence work for you. Let anticipation breathe. Because when someone senses that you have a full life, clear boundaries, and no need to rush validation, attraction has space to stretch and settle. And this is how to fall in love without forcing it, without chasing it, without losing yourself in the process. Don't measure success by how fast things move, measure it by how naturally interest flows back toward you. Because real connection always returns effort with effort, curiosity with curiosity, and when that balance holds, attraction doesn't fade, it deepens quietly, steadily. And with meaning, guided by an understanding of psychology tricks, female psychology, and the timeless human desire to choose, not to be chased. If this message resonated with you, like the video, comment below and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Subscribe for more psychology-backed insights on attraction and self-mastery. Comment to remember. I attract through balance, not chasing. Engaging with this statement reinforces the idea that real attraction grows through mutual interest, emotional balance, and self respect, not over pursuit. 8. Purpose is magnetic. A man with direction doesn't beg for attention, he attracts it. That line matters because it describes a quiet law of human nature that most people feel but rarely articulate. Purpose acts like gravity. You don't announce it. You don't chase reactions. You simply move, and attention adjusts around you. Psychologically, purpose signals competence, stability, and confidence, not because you say you have them, but because your life proves it. Be clear on this. Attraction is not created by convincing someone you matter. It is created when your actions show that your time already matters. That is the difference between seeking approval and living with intent. Don't confuse busyness with purpose. Purpose has direction. It has priorities. It has restraint. When a man wakes up knowing what he is building, improving, or protecting, his presence changes. He listens differently. He speaks less, but with weight. That is what people respond to, especially women who are sensitive to consistency and emotional grounding. Men who prioritize their work, health, and goals naturally become more desirable because they aren't searching for identity through relationships. That example holds more depth than it first appears. When you build your body, your craft, and your routine, you are telling the world, I already belong to myself. Be that man. Don't ask a relationship to give you meaning. You must bring meaning with you. A high-value man doesn't perform importance. He lives it daily through discipline and follow-through. This is how you attract women without chasing them, because attraction follows direction the way smoke follows fire. Masculine energy is not loud or forceful. It is steady. It is anchored. It comes from knowing where you're going and being unbothered by who isn't coming along for the ride. Purpose also protects you. It keeps you from over-investing too early. It keeps your emotions clean and your choices intentional. Don't abandon your routines for attention. Don't rearrange your values to be liked. That is not how you attract women long-term. That is how you lose yourself quietly. You must understand this. When a man has purpose, relationships become an addition, not a rescue. That shift alone changes how you show up, how you're perceived, and how you're treated. A high-value man doesn't rush connection because his life already feels full. That fullness is felt across the table, across a room, even across silence. Masculine energy thrives on mission. When your days are structured around growth, contribution, and self-respect, attraction becomes a byproduct, not a goal. Be grounded. Be consistent. Don't over-explain your ambition. Live it. That is how you attract women who respect you, not because you asked for it, but because your life made sense without them first. Purpose doesn't chase. Purpose invites. And the right people always recognize the invitation. 9. Self-respect outweighs people-pleasing. Self-respect outweighs people-pleasing, and this is the lesson many men learn late, if at all, because modern life quietly trains you to trade your spine for applause, yet the truth is simple and timeless. Being agreeable is not the same as being respected, and respect is what creates attraction, trust, and lasting influence. Psychology confirms it, experience confirms it, and Old Stoic wisdom confirms it, because people value the man who can say no with calm certainty more than the man who says yes while resenting himself later. So understand this clearly and without apology. Every time you abandon your values to keep the peace, you teach others how to treat you, and every time you protect your standards, you signal strength without raising your voice. Which is why Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts," a reminder that self-command comes before social approval. In modern work, relationships, and family life, this shows. Up daily when you decline a meeting that wastes time, refuse a request that drains your energy, or set a boundary that preserves your principles, and though it may feel uncomfortable in the moment. Discomfort is the price of respect, and comfort is the tax of people-pleasing, so choose wisely, because the long game always favors the man who stands firm. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. And that line matters now more than ever, because saying, No will confuse those who benefited from your constant yes, but confusion fades while respect grows and that growth compounds. This is not about being cold or unkind. It is about clarity, because clarity attracts, clarity calms, clarity leads. And clarity builds an iron mind that does not bend under social pressure or emotional manipulation. When you act from self respect, you stop negotiating with your conscience, you stop chasing validation, you stop explaining yourself to people who have not earned an explanation. And this is where Stoicism Win becomes real life practice, not theory. Because Stoicism Win is choosing principle over impulse, direction over distraction, and purpose over popularity. Seneca warned. No man is free who is not master of himself, and mastery begins the moment you decide that your values are not for sale, not for likes, not for approval, not for temporary comfort. In relationships, this means turning down what conflicts with who you are not to punish anyone, but to honor yourself, and paradoxically, that self-honor is what draws genuine interest and trust, because people sense when a man is aligned. Remember this again and again from different angles. Self-respect builds attraction. Self-respect builds confidence. Self-respect builds peace, and this repetition matters because it imprints the habit. Cultivate Old Stoic wisdom daily. Rehearse your boundaries before they are tested, and train your iron mind to pause before agreeing, because the pause is power, and power used quietly is the most reliable kind. Live this, and you will feel the shift, not as noise, but as gravity. And when gravity works for you, life becomes simpler, decisions become cleaner. And Stoicism Win stops being a phrase and starts being your advantage, your compass, and your calm center again and again, grounded in Old Stoic wisdom and sealed by an iron mind. All right, before you go, thanks for spending this time with me. Here's the honest takeaway I want you to remember. This isn't about tricks, manipulation, or trying to win someone over. It's about understanding psychology so you stop working against yourself. When you stop overgiving, over-explaining, and over-compromising, you naturally show up calmer, more grounded, and more confident. And that's when relationships stop feeling stressful or one-sided and start feeling mutual, respectful, and real. So my advice is simple and sincere. Focus less on trying to be chosen and more on becoming someone who respects his own time, energy, and boundaries. When you do that, attraction isn't forced, it flows. If this challenged something you believed, or finally put words to something you felt for a long time, you're in the right place. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Subscribe for more psychology-based insights for men who refuse to stay confused, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Some truths are uncomfortable, but they're also freeing.